All right, still on Matters Trade, I spoke to Joshua Oigara, the Managing Director of Stanbic Bank Kenya and South Sudan, on the role of banks in enhancing trade through the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Here's that conversation. For businesses to transact across Africa, even as we talk about Africa Continental Free Trade Area?
So for us as a large bank on the continent, Standard Bank operates today in 20 countries. And a lot of that, our business is around facilitating trade, enabling settlements across most markets. And in areas like East Africa, we got borderless banking today. Yeah. So one of the biggest initiatives is to allow customers within the region to pay in their own currencies and make trade happening within the Eastern area. We may see that happening in the West as well, and also Southern Africa, and maybe lastly in the North. So the challenge is to find more institutions. So we are a catalyst. We lead through that investment and that kind of payment system. So what is our vision going forward is how do we grow into more markets, covering the entire blocks of the continent to grow trade. So two other aspects. One is finance, one is payments, but also is what you call the barriers for trade. Part of our greatest journey is to engage governments like CS Moses Kuria to eliminate the barriers that frustrate businesses from selling cross country.
Yeah, now the other thing that I'm sure I would really want to get your first sentiments on is the fact that what the CS has mentioned, coming up with a law that requires all companies to be part of the Kenya Chamber of Commerce. What is your take on that, and what knock-on effect is that going to have in the sector?
It's absolutely clear today that a country must run with a business environment and a business group, which is what most countries know, the American Chamber of Commerce, the European Chamber of Commerce. So it's the right thing to do. But also it must be the most credible private sector leadership group that engages government for investment and trade. Today we have too many units. We are flattenerized. There are so many individuals that are involved. So we will support it. We're not a member of the chamber today, but we believe that as you build credibility, you build long-term investment, and you have credible members in that group, you should be able to see support. So we are 100% supporting a guideline that makes it. We need one business group representing Kenya business sector.
All right, now there's also the question of we've been talking a lot about the role of private sector in ensuring that Africa develops, in ensuring that we enable businesses to grow and to prosper. Now, the question that I have for you is, when you look at the role of private sector in ensuring that there's capital in the market, where do you think banks come in? And in terms of businesses, are we likely to see, let's say, Stanbic, which you lead, investing more in businesses?
So if you look today, and I just give you some actual data that you have, all the funding for businesses in our markets, smaller, medium, and large, are funded by banks. There is no other provider of capital in our markets. So I think it's good just to remove this kind of view. If you want a small facility to set up your business, the earliest provider of capital is a bank. There are two areas that we don't have yet in our market. One is the capital market, as you know very well, tends to focus on larger businesses who are established, or venture capital, who are just kind of family offices. And what we like to do is what we see is increase the profile of other investors in our markets. Now, in mature markets, if you think about Asia, what the minister spoke about today, or what you find is more and more private sector, more and more venture funds coming in, and more capital markets. And let me assure you, it's a mix of both. Without the private sector and capital markets coming in, venture funds coming in, what you find is people then are unable to set up their businesses. So we like to support the initiative he spoke about. Yeah, he talked about setting up a fund for smaller businesses, right? So we do run a Stanbic. We finance that. We have catalyst funds, actually. We run with the GIZ today. We work with the USADF. So we're supporting from zero. We give them lower interest rates. We give them support. The other thing I like to say for businesses is what the minister spoke about: capability, access to markets.
All right, let me put you on the spot for a minute now. What will be your ideal outcome out of this conference? We're bringing together the private sector, we're bringing together government. What will be the ideal outcome out of this conference?
The dialogue is quite basic. We need to interconnect and discuss the opportunities and how we play as private sector and work with government. We've been speaking, if we can just move 1 inch and enable increased trade today from the current, today we have less than $30 billion within the region. If we can scale it even by 10%, we have more connections, we sign some agreements, we find some investment coming in, I'll be very excited. For the 100 business coming and the 50 ministers coming, if you can agree, and also the 4 remaining countries who are yet to ratify the protocol, hopefully in this process they're going to ratify them. Those are the 2 simple asks.
All right, thank you so much for making time to speak to us. Really appreciate it. All right, that was a conversation.